I brought Winnie the Pooh back for a moment because, Bonnie's going, is going to go, Nika form again in this episode, in this chapter, which is yay. And Kuma's there again, so he's going to get to kind of see it, even though he's, not 100% there, but, I thought that was appropriate. Also, he's white like Nika, or at least this version of him is. This is like a winter version, Christmas version that I have. Okay. One Piece, chapter 1121. If I'm remembering correctly, this is supposed to be the 27-year anniversary for One Piece. That's this chapter, which is awesome. Awesome. So, that of course means there's a bit of a One Piece celebration thing happening. So, the cover of Shonen Jump this week is One Piece. It is Luffy looking very, fashionable in, he's got like a golden feather boa and he's in like one of the nice suit jackets that like Oda will draw him in and that we've seen him in a little bit in the shows or in the movies more than anything. We see Nami, dressed up nicely. Chopper's in the background. He's got a bow tie. Usopp's there. He's in like, a purple suit. So it's like, I love it when we get like fancy straw hats, fancy dressed straw hats. We got that a bit in Whole Cake Island with, they had to have the meeting with Beji and everything like that. So we had like, the Sanji retrieval team and such in like, the nice fancy formal outfits and everything like that. And I know like in the movies, we've gotten them in, fancy stuff like Strong World. They all end up being, black tie dressed and things like that. So it just like, I like it when we see the Straw Hats in, more fancy outfits because we're so used to seeing them in fairly casual stuff, but it's just kind of fun because that doesn't happen canonically very often. So it's just kind of fun that way. So there's that. That was the Shonen Jump cover page. And then we go to the actual chapter and that cover page is just, so it's kind of looks like it's a bit of a celebration of summer. And in that regard, it is nice big Nami, of course, in a bikini, and then all around, and like she's got like an ice cream cone in hand, and then all of the other Straw Hats are all around her in like not chibi forms, but they're just like, smaller. Like Nami got hit with like a gigantification ray, so she's big, but everybody else is like normal sized, I guess. And they're all kind of around her, and there's all other delicious summer foods like ice cream and parfait and watermelon and different fruits and other fruits and pretty flowers and everything like that are all around her, and they're all just having a lot of fun eating them and everything like that. And Frankie looks like he's riding a mechanical duck or something, which is fun. Of course, Brooks playing his guitar in the background, so that's fun. This is actually kind of reminiscent of we've had a couple of other like, summer themed cover pages for One Piece where it's like there's one where it's, Nami and she's, it's usually Nami that's nice and big in the center. Occasionally Robin's there as well. But like it's her and the Straw Hats are all around her again. Or there's the one where it's like Luffy and he's like eating ice cream, but it's like all the scoops of ice cream all have the faces of the Straw Hats on them. So it's like, it's kind of fun. And I like it in the openings. When they like adapt some of the cover pages into the openings. Those are kind of cute. So, going into the chapter. It's chapter, as I said, it's chapter 1121. And it is called The Ebb and Flow of the Ages, which, according to one of the translation things that I read, is a reference to a quote from Roger way back in like chapter 100 or something like that I think is like gets referenced when the Straw Hats are getting ready to leave Logtown and enter the Grand Line. So there's something referenced there. So we start off where we left off, or we continue where we left off. Saturn is still poised on the bow of the ship, or the stern of the ship, whichever one is the back of the ship, I don't know. And he's still poised there, and Luffy's warning the rest of them on the crew, that, the rest of the giants and everything, like, watch out for those claws, they're poisonous, don't touch them. And We hear the Marines shouting in the background because the shot that we're getting is, it's like outside shot of Egghead Island where we see all the Marines still firing at the Great Eric at Dorian Broggy's ship. And the Marines are just like, we can't let them get away. Fire, fire. And Saturn is there on the bow of the ship, and he's like, jabbing his legs at Luffy and the giants and everything like that are on the ship. And he's not doing his semi, diplomatic looking demon. He just looks pissed, which is fair. I mean, devil's advocate here for a moment. If you're the person in charge of, what could happen if, everything that you have built up over the last, 800 years can be overthrown by a whimsical man-child with a, mythical zone devil fruit that allows him to, bend the laws of reality, and a girl whose devil fruit allows her to mimic that, as he refers to it, parody it, then I would be pretty angry too if that was happening. So it's just like, I understand why the Gorosei are angry and why Eames angry, but it's also like, I'm rooting for the Straw Hats at the moment unless you prove otherwise for why I should root for you, which, let's be honest, is very, very unlikely that I will change my opinion on that one there, Sir Spider Ushioni thing. Sir Spider Bull. Which, of course, some of Saturn's sins are, brought up later in the chapter and everything like that from Bonnie's perspective. So, he's trying to stab at them, and all the rest of the giants are, blocking this, his legs with their shields. Depending on how corrosive that poison is, some of them may have to get new shields later on. Also, their shields look a lot smaller than they should be, so they look like the shields should be like bigger in my opinion, but I don't know. It's just, don't let any of it touch you and everything like that. And we see Luffy, and he's, still, winding up to do another attack against Saturn, and he's just like, you still won't stay down, you bastard. Which I know in the context of the manga, I know we don't hear Luffy swear super often. I know it's happened mostly when he's angry at whoever it is that he's fighting. I think he called Kaido a bastard at some point in time, and Doflamingo and some of the others, but like for the most part we don't hear Luffy swear that often, so it's just kind of funny. Zoro, I think we hear swear more often, and I think we hear Sanji swear a bit more often, but like Luffy doesn't do it super often as far as I can remember, but it's still funny. So he's winding up, literally getting ready to attack again. And he looks down and he sees Bonnie is like trying to stand back up, because like we saw that she had gone out of her most free future and had gone back into her regular child form, and now she's like getting up and like getting herself going again to go into this her Nika form again. So she's building up, her strength to do that. And Saturn sees this as well, and he tries to attack her. So Luffy, punches Saturn's leg away with one of his, hockeyed fist. And one of the things is that was pointed out in the chapter when I was like looking over everything and reading some of the translations for it, is that Luffy is, while he is blocking Saturn's attacks from like hitting Bonnie or from hitting other people if necessary, he's not hitting at Saturn directly. And it's kind of supposed to be hinted that he wants Bonnie to get up again and help him again, which is what we're going to see happen in the next panel. Bonnie has, she's gotten back into her Nika-ish future, her most free future, and we'll probably hear like the drums of liberation going in the background again, which means that if both heartbeats can help with powering Emmett, then that would be very helpful for him to be able to then maybe not 100% get that giant weapon going again that he wanted to use, but at least maybe help him if he has like a bomb inside of him or whatever his power source is. He can, release it and, blow himself up and blow up two of the Gorosei in the process. So, and Saturn is watching as Bonnie goes into this form, and he's just like, Bonnie, like just angry with like, the veins popping all over his face, which is just funny. And Bonnie is like wheezing as she's trying to maintain this form because, like, yeah, as is pointed out, Bonnie is canonically 12 years old, which means that she probably has the stamina of a 12-year-old or so. I mean, her stamina might be a little bit higher than a regular 12-year-old just because she's been going through a lot of training. And some of that training just consisted of, like, surviving in the new world on her own for 2 years without her crew, which I hope we see her crew again at some point in time. But, it consisted of her surviving on her own for 2 years. On top of, after that, she'd been training at, on this in the Sorvey Kingdom in the church. She'd been doing lots of, running around, building up her stamina and everything like that as much as she could at that age. But even 12-year-olds have a limit for their, for how much energy they have. Trust me, I've been around multiples of them over the years with my nieces and nephew and cousins, and they seem like they will never run out of energy, and then they just eventually hit the, oh, I'm out of energy, and then, well, now go to bed, type of thing. So Bonnie is trying to, maintain this as best as possible for her most free future, and Luffy is just like, that's it, Bonnie, you've got this. So, cutting back into Vegapunk's message, I'm going to go over what Vegapunk is saying for these first couple of lines, and then I will go on for what we're seeing in the background. So Vegapunk continues, and he's just like, a day of awakening is coming where all the pressing secrets of the Void Century will be uncovered. That first one, it just has us watching, it's the broadcast, and it's being aired in, I don't know what island. It's not Hachinosu, because it's not those types of islands. I don't think it's Alabasta. I guess it's a possibility that it's Water 7 because we see like what look like normal citizens, but then we also see like pirates there as well. So I don't exactly know what island this is supposed to be, but it's got like very good architecture in the background. So I would assume it's it might be Water 7, and those might just be, some of them might be the shipwrights or something, but I'm not sure. Because in Water 7, it's like they allow the pirates into Water 7 as long as they don't cause problems, because if they cause problems, then the shipwrights and everything will attack them. Because it's just like, you are here to do business, and as long as you don't hurt our citizens, we will do business with you, as we saw demonstrated in the Water 7 arc. That'll get, we'll get Water 7 referenced again in a little bit. Continuing on for the message, it is, we know the weapons technology that sank the world's continent is still in use. That power is out there. And then over these next 3 panels, we see Shirahoshi, which is of course a reference to Poseidon, which is of course is what she is the new incarnation of. Hopefully she's been doing somewhat of training with her powers. We also see Vivi, who of course, because of the fact that, everything that happened in Alabasta with Crocodile was like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get my hands on, information about the ancient weapon Pluton. And of course she probably heard some of that and everything, heard that from her father. Like her father probably explained some of that to her later on once he was recovered. And Vivi may have been doing some of her own research in and of itself over the last, 2 years, give or take, to prepare for her position of eventually being queen. So we see her, and she's like, ooh, like just kind of very serious face, but also just like, okay, I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but I need to make sure that I can get this information to someone. And then we cut up to one of the other places that we have not seen canonically be on cover pages for a long time. We cut up to Skypiea, where we see Caunus and Isa are on their way to visit Wiper and his group, who are now, God's Holy Knights, because they work for Gonfall as like his guards. And we also see Nola, the giant snake, in the background. And, I love this bit because, and I pointed this out to my mom because, like, I'll talk to her about stuff that's happening in the chapter, and she'll listen to me and then be like, okay, it's time to go to bed. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And so I love this because it's like, it's just like Gaimon and Sarfunkel. It's like they have no idea that this broadcast is happening. They don't have the Dendenmushi up in Skypiea. They don't have this way to communicate with the world below, with the Blue Sea world. There's no real good way of communicating between the White Sea and the Blue Sea. So they're completely oblivious to anything that is going on at the moment. As far as they're aware, I don't know, Luffy and his friends kept sailing and had more fun adventures, which they did, but like they've been occupied with trying to, rebuild, build better relationships between the Shandians and the Shandians and the Skypieans, with being able to bridge those gaps, which they've done, and we've seen that in the check-in cover pages that we've seen when Oda does the decks of the world. We've seen them being, continuing to, just, improve their relationships. Like, Kanis and Locky are now really good friends, and they work at that pumpkin cafe, and, Isa works at, the Usopp land, tourist place where Nolo works, and, we see, I think Amazon is the name, was a really, 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 really old Skypian lady that, works there as well. And then we know that, Gonfall and the chief of the Shandians are now like good drinking buddies, and like Poggy is part of that as well. And then we also know that, Whitebear and his group, that were like part of his warriors that were trying to, take down Enel or Inaru, whichever way you want to put it, are now Gonfall's, guards, which is, Gonfall is a Skypian and they are Shandian, so it is this continuing to bridge these gaps, 2 years later, and building these friendships so that way they don't want to fight each other down, in the future. I would still personally love it if there ended up being a way for the Skypians to be part of the final battle against, the world government or against, Blackbeard, but it also just makes sense that there are these sections of the world that are really untouched for the most part by what is going on down on the Blue Sea. Like Gaimon and Sarfunkel, like, yeah, if the ocean levels rise more, that's not going to be good for their island of rare animals and Mr. and Mrs. trapped in a treasure chest and barrel. But, for the Shandians and for the Skypians up here in Skypiea, there's not really, we don't know if the lasers from Uranus would be able to reach them up there. There is part of the theory that, like, the knock-up stream that knocked Skypiea up there in the first place, or not Skypiea, that knocked Shandia up there in the first place, that half a Jaya, that could have been caused by Uranus, 400-ish years ago, but we're not exactly sure. That could have caused that knock-up stream. But it is that concept of, this is a section of the population that, while they know a bit about the Blue Sea, they don't really know everything that's going on there. And they're mostly just not living in ignorance, because it's not like they have much of a choice in the matter. There's not really a good way to set up communication between, the Skypians and the Shandians and the Blue Sea necessarily. And then, like whatever other Bjerkins might still be alive. Maybe rebuilding Vierka, maybe that's where Aruj went. We don't know, but like they don't have the Dendenmushi up here, so it is this like isolated portion of the population of the world that really doesn't have much of an idea of what's going on. Which, that can also be related to things in our world. So, continuing on with Vegapunk's speech, he's like, those with rare and unique racial ancestry are relentlessly persecuted and slaughtered today due to some mysterious quirk of history. And this is where we start cutting around the world again to see some, bits of flashback here and there where we see, we start with Kuma on the deck of the Great Eric looking up at, what's going on with, seeing Bonnie and her most free future fighting against Saturn, this man that caused him so much pain and is the reason why he's in this, kind of brain dead robotic cyborg state. And then that cuts into the next panel is, when Vegapunk and Kuma were talking about Kuma being a buccaneer, back when he was allowing Vegapunk to, start, examining him and everything like that, to start getting everything ready for, turning him into the cyborg and the eventual, basis for the Pacifista. So they're having that thing where it's just like, Vegapunk's like, oh, are you a buccaneer? And, Kuma's like, yeah, what makes my blood so special anyway? And then we cut to Sphinx Island, where we have Marco, which confirms that he's not off trying to do anything to help Miss Bokkeen. We don't see her in this, so she may or may not be there. She may be off trying to figure out someone else to help her. Or maybe Marco called, some of the other former, commanders of the Whitebeard pirates and was like, hey, Jozu, Vista, I need your help. Yeah, I got this really crazy... you remember Miss Bokkeen, the one that kept, claiming that she was Whitebeard's lover? Yeah, we remember her. Okay, so her son, Weevil, got captured trying to protect Pops' island and the people here on Sphinx Island. And he got captured by a Marine Admiral, the newer one. No, not the blind one. Not the blind one with the sword. This is the psycho guy with the plant powers. Yeah, him. Can you please, can you help gather up some of the others to see if we can try to help get Weevil out of prison, I guess, or at least away from the Marines, because, he did protect Pops' island, but I can't really leave now. I did that once, and I went to Wano, and the Marines attacked, and, people almost died, so it's like, I can't really leave here, but maybe you guys can help. Like, that might have been the whole conversation, except it would have been talking to the snail receiver instead of like this. But you get the idea. I love how even in this day and age with, like, smartphones, this is still the general thing for, like, call me, type of thing. So we see Marco sitting there on Sphinx Island, and he's listening with, like, a bunch of the citizens of Sphinx Island as the snail talks, as their snail keeps relaying the message. And Marco is thinking back to Whitebeard when they ended up talking about, like, the Lunarians, and he's like, I'm talking about the distant past, back when there was a kingdom of gods up there. Like, as when he used to get drunk, he would get philosophical, I guess, and, like, talked about, like, that there had been Lunarians up on the Red Line, where Marijwa was. And then we cut to King, who is currently sitting in a cell in Udon, in Wano. He looks like he's been bandaged up and treated after being attacked by previously aforementioned plant-powered admiral for Ryukogu. Now, I do not think that the prisoners of Wano are listening in on this, because I think there was only, like, one Denden Mushi that they found, and that is currently at the capital in Wano with Momonosuke and Toka and Otama and that group. And depending on how this lands for, like, Yamato's journey, Yamato may end up listening to this and then going off, or listens to this and maybe has his own Denden Mushi that he's going to get to listen to what's going on, or we'll find out about it when he gets back to the castle. Something like that. But we see King, and which at least confirms that he's still alive, which means that Yamato could still talk to him if Yamato ends up at Udon Prison, which I still want to have happen. I still want them to have a conversation. I don't care if Yamato and Queen ever talk. I want Yamato and King to talk and have a conversation about Kaido and about what happened and about Lunarians. I want that to happen. Don't know if it will. The dog's snoring in the background. But we see King, and he, it's just like, he's kind of probably reminiscing of, your Lunarian, the world government is ordering, a million berry, 100 million berries for any information on them. And then we cut to what is probably still within the bowels of the Saber of Zebak, Blackbeard's ship. And we see Pudding, who is, of course, the representation of the Third Eye tribe. And it's like, she is reminiscing of, look, she's got 3 eyes, of when she would be, picked on and tortured as a kid, simply because she had 3 eyes. Now, I doubt King is listening to any of this message. Pudding might be, because there might be some, lackeys down in the brig of the ship listening to, this message on just whatever Dendenmushi they happen to have. So now we cut back to Egghead Island and back to the ships, back to the Great Eric. And I'm assuming it's Saturn shouting or something like that, or Bonnie shouting. I'm not sure which. It's either Saturn shouting at, just angry at, like, Nika! Like Kirk with, Khan! Some combination of that. And then we see Bonnie, and she's just, like, looking at Saturn like, you're mine. And we see Saturn, and it's just very imposing image where it's Saturn with all of his, claws, whatever you want to call them, pointing at Bonnie as they're all getting ready to fire at her and zoom in on her and attack her. And Saturn is just like, you are but a parrot mimicking what you do not comprehend, in regards to, like, Bonnie mimicking Luffy. I am, it's like, I've seen the theories about, like, Luffy being able to find a way to, like, give his power or this freedom to form, liberated form, to others. And I love that concept of, like, seeing the rest of the Straw Hats be able to go Nika, be able to gain, like, a Gear 5th type thing. I would love that. I don't know if that would happen or not, but I love that idea, because we've seen it demonstrated here with Bonnie, and there might be others that might be able to mimic it, but I like that idea. So what we see is Saturn tries to attack Bonnie. Luffy shouts enough and kicks away Saturn's claws, so they're not able to hit Bonnie. And then Saturn, which just makes Saturn angrier. Luffy's laughing, and then we see Bonnie is starting to cry. And then what we get is this nice big double page spread where we have, so it's cutting between memories and possible memories, and, a possible lifetime that could have happened for Bonnie, and the present. And so we cut back to the God Valley incident. Now, bear in mind, of course, Bonnie has seen Kuma's memories at this point in time, so she knows what happened at God Valley. And maybe unlike Kuma, who may not have been able to draw all of the connections between Saturn is the one who he encountered at God Valley when he was a child, and Saturn is the one who caused him to have to go through all of this torture and everything like that. Kuma may not have been able to figure that out, because maybe he just, he repressed some of that or whatever. I don't know. But it's the moment when, just after, or just before, Kuma stood up to Saturn, and Saturn's like, you can either live as a slave or die. Nothing else can be tolerated for someone of your ilk. That is what the tides of time have decided. And then we cut back to the present, where we just have angry Saturn, and Bonnie is, she's, starting to, pull her fist back, getting ready to attack, and she's like, how dare you, all those things you did to Daddy, and what you did to Mommy. And of course, for the majority of Bonnie's life, for the most of Bonnie's life, she probably knew she had a mother, like maybe Kuma told her a little bit about Ginny, but he would not have told her anywhere near everything that Ginny had been through, particularly with what he at least could deduce by, her coming back and having the sapphire scales and everything like that. And what she went through in Marie Joie with whatever celestial dragon wanted her as his quote-unquote wife. Nope. And then being experimented on by Saturn. So, and then we also get, like, these cuts to two other people, of course, who have this connection to Bonnie's past. We see Kizaru, he's still pretending to be knocked out and down. And we see Sentomaru, who, as far as we're aware, Sentomaru is still freaking trapped on Egghead as it is being bombarded and destroyed. We don't know where Sentomaru is. I guess there's the possibility that maybe, like, Stussy is going to find him and get him out of there, possibly. That would be a possibility. Or I'm trying to think of who else would be able to save Sentomaru. I guess there's a possibility that Edison is possibly alive, and, like, he disconnected himself from Punk Records, so he's still alive, but he's like pretending that he's not, so York can't track him, or whatever the case may be, like the way that Atlas did with Lilith in the last chapter. So I don't know what to say about that. We cut back to one of the panels that would be reminiscing about when, or that would be remembering from Bonnie's perspective of when Saturn was holding her up just before we got the flashback about Kuma after she'd stabbed Saturn, which I still love that fact. And he's just like, your mother ended up being part of my drug experiments. And it's just like, how dare you, and it's Bonnie shouting about, how dare you call yourself a god? Real gods do exist. And then we have this like little panel that is heart-wrenching in the fact that it is, you know, little baby Bonnie looking up at Ginny, but of course Ginny's face is in shadow at this point in time, and she's just like, Bonnie, say hi to mommy. And whether or not this is like, because I mean, it is implied that the Celestial Dragons allowed, you know, they told Ginny that she could leave because she was no longer of use to them. And Saturn probably, you know, either knew that she was pregnant or she had already given birth to Bonnie at that point in time and allowed her to be able to leave and take the baby with her because he wanted to see what would happen, because he knew about this connection between Ginny and Kuma and was just like, let's see what happens here. And then of course later on he gets to see what happened, and as Bonnie got sick with the sapphire scales, and then he sees, you know, Kuma's willing to do anything to protect Bonnie and to save her, even at the cost of his own life and his own suffering. And Saturn is just like, more toys to play with is his opinion. So he's just like, I'll allow it. And, you know, but then, and then we're going to get another panel that's just going to be heart-wrenching in a moment. But then we cut back to, like, you know, Bonnie as a kid and, you know, her and Kuma doing the Nika dance and everything. And it's just like, I wanted to be a hero, someone who could save people. And I think that's supposed to be Kuma's voice. And then Bonnie in the present is like, real heroes too. And that's cutting, you know, that panel is over current Kuma, who is still like slumped against the ship, like watching what's going on, but whether or not he can actually comprehend what's going on is a little bit left up for debate. For however much of his, you know, mental processes are available. But, and Bonnie is like crying as she's saying this. She was just like, all I ever wanted was for the three of us to live in peace. Being alone for so long made me want to die, but I kept going. I owed everything to those two. They've blessed me in so many ways. And we get this picture that is the what if of what should have been, where it's okay, I don't remember if this was just a cover page that like someone requested Oda to draw, but I think it was like Rouge and Roger with Ace, like had Roger lived, and it was like, you know, Rouge and Ace and Roger all together being happy. And it's like, this is a reminiscent of that, where it is, you know, Kuma, giant freaking Kuma, holding little tiny Bonnie in his hand. And then Ginny is next to him, and she's perfectly healthy and happy. And it's them saying, thank you, Bonnie. We are so glad you were born. Of just like how happy they would be. And it is that life where it's like, if Kuma wasn't hunted for being a buccaneer, then him and Ginny could have had a baby. And he would, of course, loved that Bonnie, that version of Bonnie, just as much as he loves this version of Bonnie. You know, this version of Bonnie that is still fighting and is still, you know, focusing on her own faith that she has and the faith that her father gave her about Nika. And, you know, that Luffy has helped her realize in and of herself here. And we cut to the next big part of this panel, and it's Saturn A looking pissed again and yelling, you insects, as Bonnie is, you know, rearing back with like an inflated, you know, fist getting ready to fire at him. And she's like, liberating. And we see Luffy next to her, who's like, you know, rearing back as well, getting ready to help. And then we cut to another awesome double page spread, which gets us to catch up with a couple of other people again. So as the Vegapunk message continues, so let me do the Vegapunk message first. Okay. Pause on the Bonnie attack. So but Vegapunk's message continues. So it's like, there will be a reckoning on the day those answers come. You must be on guard to protect yourselves, no matter what happens. I have faith in humanity's capacity for wisdom. I have faith in science. Buzz. Roger died 25 years ago. Buzz. And it's been 2 years since Whitebeard's death. A new age is heralded by the passing of old legends. Buzz. So, pausing there for the moment. These panels we see, so the top one we cut to Water 7, where we see we see Iceberg, who's I think possibly still in his pajamas from when he got woken up by the message. And we see Alice, who is, his, like 10-year-old, whatever, little assistant, secretary. And then I think we also see Tilestone and Lulu in the background as they're all watching this play out. Then we cut to what would be within the Germa Kingdom, which I believe my last video for the Germa Kingdom discussions will be going up on next Monday. We see Caesar and Judge just arguing. Which just seems like the thing they're going to be in a lot. Going to be doing a lot. And then we cut to Witheria. Speaking of Sky Islands. We cut to Witheria, where we see Herodotus, who is the sky wizard, weather wizard, whatever, who like helped teach Nami during the 2-year time skip. And like behind him we see some of the other wizards. It was revealed at a cover page that one of the things that Nami did while she was there was that she updated all of their fashions, so they all have like much better fashion, which is just funny. So this is kind of getting, I think, referenced in the background with the way that they look. They all kind of look like Dumbledore though, because like even in general, like beforehand, they all have like the long beards and the tall pointy hats and the long robes, so they're all kind of reminiscent of like Dumbledore and Gandalf anyway. But now they're like, I guess, well, I mean, given some of the patterns I think we saw them wearing, there are references to Dumbledore in the fact of like in the books, Dumbledore always wears these very bright, vibrant colors and fun patterns on his robes while at Hogwarts and everything. So we see that, and then the other two panels for this page, before we get to the big one, the dog is still snoring, is we see part of the Vegapunk lab that seems to be the part that's releasing a bunch of the that was releasing the island cloud mixture, I think, and it's like around it is on fire, so it's just showing this destruction. And then we see Emmett still facing off against Jupiter and Warcury. We don't see anything from Emmett this chapter beyond this, but we see that, so it's just like he's either getting still bopped around by them, or he is trying to like figure out a way to like activate his power. So other half of the double page spread that we have here is the finishing bit of Bonnie's attack. So it was liberating Nika punch, and it's her like gear 4-ing, giant fist, gear 3ing, like giant fist with Haki on it. So this is confirming that yes, Bonnie has Haki. Being able to fire at Saturn, and then all around her, as in like a flip of the panel. Earlier it was like all of Saturn's claws, dialing in on her. In this case, it's a bunch of Luffy's fists all dialing in on Saturn and just like punching the heck out of Saturn at the same time as Bonnie is punching his face, which is like yes, yes, yes. And then the next panel of the top panel of the next page, I'm going to go over the panels first and then what's being said in the background for this bit. So we have Saturn, and he is just getting Swiss cheesed and riddled with holes. And like, hopefully that at least, it's not going to keep him down for long, but hopefully long enough to let some time for the Straw Hats to get away, or at least get 1,000 Sunnies safely into the water, then hopefully along. And then he's falling into the water, being tossed into the wall behind them in like chunks. Now, depending on what happens when Saturn lands in the water, that should give us more of an answer as to how similar their abilities are to devil fruits, and if it is that they don't actually have devil fruits, this is actually like a power from Eem, then they may not be affected by the ocean, particularly if there is that connection between Eem and the water, the ocean goddess or whatever they want to call it, Mother Ocean. Or if it does affect them, then we'll find out, depending on how this goes. I mean, I had the thought of, like, there could be the possibility that, like, Mars arrives in the next chapter and is able to, like, drop down and, like, grab Saturn before he lands into the water. I mean, like, I guess that could happen, but we don't know what happened to Mars yet beyond getting blasted off like Team Rocket. So, Vegapunk continues, and it's just like, today, there are certain individuals who can't be oppressed. Pausing again. Back to what's going on. We have the celebration on the Great Eric. We see Dory and Broggy just, like, lifting their sword and axe up and, like, yay! And Bonnie is just, like, crying, but it's, like, tears of, like, relief and joy, and the fact that she got to help punch out the guy that has caused so much pain for her mother and her father, and even for her in regards to, like, having the scales in the first place, and why she didn't get to grow up with her mother, and why all of this happened, why she didn't get to have, like, a normal childhood with her father, and why she's had to not be able to be with her father for the past, like, 2.5, 3 years, depending on stuff. So there's all of that. And then we also see Luffy, who is just, like, laughing his ass off as Nika, in the Nika form, and he's just like, we really sent him flying, Bonnie! And I love the relationship that is building between Luffy and Bonnie. I love that relationship. I am fine if Bonnie joins the crew, but I'm also like, I just let her go and be able to just, be a kid. Let her be a kid on Elbath, around giants and everything like that. Maybe with Lilith there to, help keep an eye on her or whatever. That'd be great. Let them be able to, like, let Kuma finally rest. Give him a Viking funeral that he deserves. All of that. And then, speaking of Kuma, we see Kuma kind of looking up at, or, like, possibly looking up at what would be, like, looking up at Bonnie. And someone else is shouting good job, but of course, because it's over, like, the Kuma panel, it's like Kuma shouting good job, and it looks like his mouth is kind of trying to smile. Cutting to the next bit, we see Dory and Broggy looking up, and they're like, look, that's your ship, isn't it? And they see the Sunny flying, going over the sky. I think we see, like, the remnants of, like, the explosion from Atlas, maybe. But the Sunny is flying through the air, and then we cut to the Sunny, where we just have Usopp panicking, which is fair. If I was on a ship that was falling from anywhere near that amount of a height, toward open ocean, where there was cannon fire going on in a battle, I would be like, no. I would just be so freaking terrified. So I don't blame Usopp. We also see Jinbei just, handling the helm just fine, and Chopper is, like, hanging on to Jinbei. And Usopp is just like, we're gonna die! We're gonna fall and die! Someone save us! So I love that. And Zoro has, like, his sword ready, so I don't know what Zoro's intention is. What are you gonna do? Cut the water? I guess he could, like, cut and deflect any cannonballs that get thrown at them. Is the possibility, but we don't see the Sunny hit the water in this chapter. But Vegapunk's message continues. Such individuals are probably the closest to the truth. Bzz. The circumstance, a coincidence, or did Roger set this all in motion? And then, of course, we get, what is the panel that is kind of the thing that set this whole story off, of Roger just like, my treasure is yours to find. Everything is right where I left it. I left everything I gathered in one place. Now you just have to find it, type of a thing. And then Vegapunk's message is, unfortunately, there's no guarantee that it will be found by someone Roger would want. So, cutting to different places, we cut to Sabaody in Shaki's Rip-Off Bar, where we see Rayleigh is just passed out drunk. On the counter, and Shaki is just like, Ray-san, you'll catch a cold, and she's, like, covering him up. I was like, Rayleigh just got so sloshed. He's not the only one in this chapter that's getting sloshed, though. Then we cut to what is Hachinosu Island, I would assume, and possibly Hachinosu. We cut to Hachinosu also, but we cut to just other places that shows other pirates that are just like, all right, Vegapunk, I like where this is going. Generic pirates. And then we cut to, Emperor Blackbeard's lair, Pirate Island, Hachinosu. And we see how much damage that the skull of the island had taken from fighting with Garp and Kobe and all of that stuff. So we see like that damage done there. I'm pretty sure Vala Pizarro is still recovering from one whopper of a headache. Having to deal with that. So we're, hearing them shouting. I was like, isn't the Commodore back yet? I can't wait much longer. Because they're just like, we want to get going. We want to go after this, whatever it is. We want to go after this treasure. And then we cut to Emperor red-haired Shanks' ship, the Red Force. And that's probably not at Elbath anymore, but just sailing on. Also, and I don't know if this is something that I've noticed before, but there is like a sun emblem on the bow of the ship, on the front of the ship, underneath the dragon head. And they're just like, boss, you're drinking too much. And he's like, shut up, I ain't drinking. So it's just like, well, he's taken after one of his father figures and is just drinking himself into a stupor, which is not surprising in the slightest. So there's that. Then we cut to Emperor Buggy's base, Empty Bluffs Island, or Kalibali Island. And we see we don't see Buggy, but we see a bunch of his, the former prisoners that are the pirates that are just like, Chairman Buggy. And there's like, no. And then we see like the outside of the tent and it's just like, there's no doubting your greatness now. Huh? You always exceed our expectations. Huh? And then it's just like, there's so much more to your dream than I thought. It's just like, again, assuming Buggy knew all of this. And then we just see Crocodile and Mihawk off to the side. And they're just like... ... They're just like, no actual reaction, but Crocodile is kind of grimacing. So that's just funny. Then we cut to Marineford. And, or Marine HQ. And G1 or whatever in the New World. And it's just like, there's no way we'll just stand by. Let's go and find it first in regards to going after the One Piece. And then we have a sane Marine who's doing their job of like, but who'll protect the common folk, you dolts? Give that guy a raise. Back to Vegapunk. It's just like, there's no stopping this now. The fate of this world will be decided by whoever finds it. And then we cut to the last double page of this chapter, which again is great and is reminiscent to back when it was announced who the new emperors were. And the words are, it all depends on who finds the One Piece. And what we see is, so we see all four of the emperors. We see Shanks, Luffy, Blackbeard, and Buggy. And then we also see some other people who are, of course, interested in the One Piece and also just, interested in, the aforementioned emperors above them. So we have Akainu, who just looks angry. We have Dragon, who could be looking off to the east. We don't know. We see a shadowy figure with a sword. We don't know who that is. There's like, oh, maybe he's connected to Garling Figureland because it kind of looks like Shanks' sword or something like that. We see, Eames, silhouettes, face outline a little bit, the silhouette of Eam. Then we see Kobe, who's of course still recovering. We see Kuzan, who looks a bit bandaged after dealing with, Garp. We see Garling, who we have not seen for a little while. Garling Figureland there. And then we see Sabo. And so it is this, great double page spread for the, 27th anniversary. A lot of great double page spreads in this chapter. I love the focusing on Bonnie and like her getting some, some vengeance, some grief help with everything that's happened because of Saturn in her life and everything. And there is going to be a break next week. And that next chapter review for 1122 might come out a lot later in the day than I normally put it up because I think I'm going to be swapping a shift with one of my coworkers. So I'll be working like mid morning to mid-afternoon that day, so I won't be able to do the chapter as early as I usually do, but I will get there. And then I think next week, either I will be doing a review for one of the non-Disney movies, or I might just do something else where I talk about another theory or something. I don't know yet. But I love how this chapter ended in regards to showing all of, getting us a little bit more of, a check-in on a bunch of these other characters. We got to see a couple that we hadn't seen for a little bit. We got to see the Skypians and the Shandians, and I loved that because I love them. I kind of just want to do a whole video about Connus at some point in time, but I don't know when I'll do that. But I love that, those little check-ins. We got confirmation that at least King is still alive after being attacked by Kuzan, or after being attacked by Ryukogu. We'll see how this all ends up, coming to fruition in the next chapter, and how all of that will be. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm assuming part of it's going to be hopefully getting the Sunny safely landed in the water, so that way it's not going to be, smashed on the waves, as Frankie pointed out. Oh, I can save the ship, and Sanji, oh, I'll make sure all the girls are okay, but that doesn't really help Usopp and Chopper and Jinbei and Zoro and Brook. And then Sanji still has to find out that, oh no, Lilith got attacked, but it was by Atlas. Oh no, Hot Girl was attacked by Cute Robot Girl. What am I gonna do? It's like all of that concept. So we'll see how that all plays out. So that's what I have for this chapter. I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, even with the dog snoring in the background. Good girl. And I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.